Welcome back to Zurich. I'm very happy to host you here in the Kunsthalle Zurich, where we have our course again. And last time that you were here in Zurich, we were teaching the course together.
So I remember, yes.
It's really nice to have you back and have you now as a guest lecturer in our course. I've always been fascinated by your background, which is in between architectural engineering and computer science. And you also studied in Greece, worked in Japan, in the US, in Switzerland. So you have a very international and interdisciplinary background.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit what made you want to get into the world of construction?
Yeah, I grew up around construction. My family used to run a design and construction practice in Greece, in a hometown in a small island. And I just was immersed in the world most of my summers as a kid. So I would either be in the office exploring software like AutoCAD in order to understand how you can design new things, or I would be on construction sites counting the rebar that was installed in order to see if it matched the design. And in that way, I was very captivated by the process of being able to design a new structure that is going to host families and businesses for decades to come. But I also saw a lot of the organizational issues that came up and the communication issues among various stakeholders, even on very small projects. And that's how I started working in this field.
Last time we saw each other, you were teaching in the course that we offered together at ETH, a class about computer vision and human-robot collaboration. Mm-hmm. With your background in construction, in the construction industry, how did you become aware of these new digital tools, and how did you include them into your research?
Right. So my background is in architecture, and I was doing a master's in Japan when the big tsunami hit in 2011. After which I decided to complete my degree there and return back to my hometown. I worked there as an architect, and during the next year of working as an architect, I had to deal with a lot of renovation projects, which means I needed to know the as-built status of those spaces, at least in a geometric fashion, if not also in semantic fashion, like knowing the elements within these spaces. And that was a very tedious process, because back in the day it was done with tape measures. And that is like, I was trying to find ways to improve this, so I found photogrammetry and laser scanning, which are technologies that can actually give you this necessary information through visual data. And that fascinated me, so I started looking more into computer vision, dipping more into this field and understanding that how you can give visual perception to machines and robots. And since then, I have been a firm believer in the potential of computer vision for the construction industry, in particular for reuse and circularity. The last year has only become stronger, this belief in computer vision, because of the advancements in the large language and vision models that we are seeing these days, which models are better than before in data they've never seen before, and the users are becoming more adept into understanding and utilizing them in everyday activities without any need for specialized training. And I do believe that in the next years we're going to see a big shift into how we do research and applications in the construction industry, all enabled by computer vision and similar AI techniques. And what is more important is, as we do that and we understand these new capabilities, is that we make sure that we still keep thinking about the issues that we have within the construction industry, about how the field will evolve, as well as addressing biases, organization challenges, and ethical considerations in the field.
I think that's really great, because you come from a construction world in a way, and then you apply these computer science technologies to solve the challenges of the construction world. And that's exactly what we do also supervising Deepika together, who is one of my PhD students who came to Stanford, to your lab also for an exchange. And she's applying all of these technologies to make the built environment more circular. Can you say a little bit more about how we use human-robot collaboration or computer vision or the large language models that you mentioned in a way that we can make the construction sector more circular?
Yes. Today, enabling circularity in construction is very expensive and very laborious. You may know that already very well. So on the one hand, we are missing good documentation and methods to be able to monitor buildings in order to get an accurate assessment of the materials, as well as their quantity and their condition, very importantly, in order to be able to enable reuse. On the other hand, also our design principles today are not accommodating an easy deconstruction and harvesting of those materials for reconstruction. So one of the first things I believe we should do is to actually create these new design principles and build in a way that allows this easy mantling and dismantling of structures in order to enable the reconstruction processes afterwards. On the other hand, we see that there is a lot of research happening right now in robotic fabrication, which is kind of a smaller field within the human-robot collaboration, where we can have robots being able to cut materials in shape, or even have automatic humanoids building buildings. And although we are a bit further away from the ladder for actually having these humanoids in our construction sites, we can still make steps in the first part of actually having robotic arms helping us do things. For example, researchers have been focusing on using robotic arms to place accurately materials on site, and then other humans or robots can connect the pieces. And that it is interesting because it takes into account the skills of robots, what they are good at, which is strength and precision, defining the roles of human and robots in a way that promotes each other's strengths.
That's so beautifully said. Hi Vanessa, hi Daniel. Hi. Thanks for having us here in the Kunsthalle. I met you almost 3 years ago already now, Daniel. And you invited me for an art and science talk here with Liz Larner, which was wonderful. You reached out to me about the possibility of a circular building pavilion. Can you tell us a bit more about why you reached out to me to do this design? What did you like about the approach of our chair?
I don't need to have an idea of a result. I see what's going on, I see what the possibilities are, and that's how we met outside when you were dismantling that pavilion. Then you would also have Engadin art talks, and then we went for pizza and so on and so on. One thing follows the other, and then Adrian came in because he was interested in that artificial intelligence thing. I was also interested in that, but not only, but I also wanted to do something at Kunsthalle Zurich that is not result-oriented, but it involves people doing something, trying out something, going for an experiment. Then Adrian says, oh, maybe Catherine could do something with artificial intelligence and reuse, and you could use it, and I said, okay, we can use it here. It all sounds chaotic, and thank God it is a little bit, but in the end it will, it will produce something that is made by the people who join the project and not by us knowing whatever this thing should be.
That's beautiful.
That's the attitude behind it. There's always a risk, obviously, that's the nice part of it, and sometimes the annoying part, but that's also okay. But I think one of the challenges we're going to have is we're not only doing this for ourselves, obviously it's nice to do this as an experiment and adventure, but I do things for a public. So in the end, people come to Kunsthalle, they take their time, they could go swimming or watch TV, but instead of that they're coming to Kunsthalle Zurich, and I have to honor this, this gesture. So I want to give them something back for their time, or we should not forget that in the end of the day, we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for people who come.
When I was invited to do this design by Daniel for the Kunsthalle, I immediately thought about your work because I thought it was a nice experiment to apply your work on using AI, generative AI, for designing to a real case study. You're an architect, but I also see you a bit as an artist. So you have this affinity with the art world, so I thought it would be really beautiful to involve you in this design process. Can you tell us a bit more about your work and specifically how it applies to this design project?
So I'm mainly working on generative AI for circular design. And it's more about supporting human creativity and not so much about optimizing things. We will hopefully have a really large database of many repurposed elements that we at some point will need something like generative AI to help us assemble those parts again. And this is actually what interests me in AI. And then it often functions a bit as a mirror, because somehow it doesn't really produce something new, but maybe something more that we didn't really think about yet, or that we kind of forgot.
Maybe the next question is also a bit for both of you, since we yet do not know exactly what this pavilion that we will eventually be in the Kunsthalle will look like. Maybe at you, Daniel, the question is, how do you imagine this pavilion to be? And then later on for you, Vanessa, is what are you designing and how are you approaching this? But
I have absolutely no idea. That's why I'm looking forward to do it. We're going to do workshops with the ETH, with the students. There are going to be lectures. So it needs to have this double function of a space that has a certain amount of intimacy.
So I mean, those are materials that we already have on site, so that's great. So we can.
But you disassembled it already.
They are disassembled
Okay.
and they are stored. Here we want to also design in a way that we can disassemble it again. The project learns from time to time and from location to location.
And I would be just curious, because most of these exhibitions that you build and set up, they are also made with reused materials, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
Some of the walls, some of the doors, some of the elements that you place in this room. So in some sense, you already have a lot of experience with circular architecture. And what is your experience with it, if I may ask?
So that's something I learned from my technicians. So they come from the countryside. Before people even started to talk about sustainability or reuse or recycling, that's what they do anyways, since ever. So that's what I learned from them. You reuse as long as you can, everything. That's how they grow up, that's how they learn their job. You don't waste material.
But in a sense, this is learning from the past experiences of people that worked here before, and maybe even cultural history. How do you think that will change now that we're implementing AI and different newer technologies that are also then part of this idea?
It might have to do with scale. So we're a very small enterprise, and my people, they know every board, every hammer, every nail they put and they reuse. They have it in their brain. But if you scale it up on bigger companies, maybe already like a Kunsthaus, a museum, I think there's at a certain point you lose control, and then maybe if they would have a program that can be fed or used to reconfigure material, that could be very useful. I think we're too small for that, or actually the time it would take to feed AI, they already have done it 3 times.
In Catherine's most recent book, the 3 of you, together with Deepika, write a chapter on AI. A student of ours in the last semester called this book, or referred to this book as the new Bible for circular construction in the digital age. What kind of advice do you have for upcoming entrepreneurs and students who are interested to go into future reuse projects?
I would advise them to focus on researching new ways to do construction in a way that enable easy reuse without major industry overhauls, because we need immediate results now if we want to meet sustainability goals. Now, among my personal aspirations is to create buildings inspired by robots, which means I imagine buildings that can easily mantle and dismantle themselves and have parts that can be switched around if necessary, buildings that can build and unbuild their own selves whenever they want, or the users want, and buildings that can change their function or shape in order to react to user activities or interactions by sensing within their environment. You know, making robots exactly like humans work, I'm not sure is the best way forward, but I think that be inspired by what makes a robot a robot. I think that would be great to
and
put
use
it
the
in
strength
building.
of a robot
Yes,
to then tackle the challenges that we face as a society, right?
yes.
Which is the need for housing and
circularity.
circularity,
Yeah.
right? Well, what I like about your answer is also that you encourage students to be entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
Because we're in a very in an industry that is very slow in innovation and in change, and that has a lot of huge challenges, environmental challenges, ethical challenges to tackle. And you can only do that if you have this kind of entrepreneurship. And that's what we see also in our students, right? In the class that we teach here, is really they have this drive of changing the world and changing the construction sector. But you're not going to do that if you don't have the courage to kind of begin something new and begin something really groundbreaking.
Yeah.
So how do you think these digital technologies, the various different ones, how can they become more accessible to be used then in the industry?
This is a question that I keep thinking a lot, and I start to believe that it's not about merely increasing accessibility to technologies. It's about developing digital technology applications that can make a difference now. This requires having an understanding of both short and long-term vision goals. Computer vision and mixed reality and human-robot collaboration in general will change a lot the field. I think it will continue to revolutionizing it even more than it's done today, which is a little bit. And the reason I believe about that is because an image is worth 1,000 words. So you can get so much information out of it. And now it's very important to change our pace, because with the projected population growth in the next 1 to 2 decades and the housing needs that brings as well into the game, we really need to continue our efforts for a circular building industry, and we cannot afford to skip a beat.
I think this is exactly why we did this exhibition here and this course at the Kunsthalle, is because we wanted to raise awareness and we wanted to talk about feasibility of these digital technologies. That's what we did also in the course that we taught together. It's really talking to the students about what is out there, the digital technologies that can help with circularity, but also what is maybe not feasible yet, what needs to be developed yet. We talked about entrepreneurship earlier, and I think this is really what needs to change in the way we build our buildings today, right? We have such a role to play in the climate crisis, and so starting that conversation is really important.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you also do with raising awareness also amongst your students and talking about all of the potential solutions that you have with the technologies that you develop. So thanks so much for your work.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.